Knowing that you have the philosophy about the importance of running volume, I would love to know your opinion if somebody came to you and said, I only have so much time in my week. And so, what should I focus on? Assuming they have a reasonable base, should I really focus just on getting as much volume as I can? Or should I really just try to hit some key hard days and hope that that gets me through to race day?
I would say maybe both. This might be an example where let's maximize volume while doing appropriate workouts. Part of it depends too, like what you're training for and when that race is. Like, let's say you're training for a 10K. Is your 10K in a month or is it in 4 months? Because if it's 4 months away, we might err on the side of volume, not really super difficult workouts. We're building a base. Maybe we're adding in some cross training if that athlete has extra time. And of course, we're going to be doing some workouts. We're going to be doing strides. We're going to be working on that neuromuscular connection, all those really important things. Doing some introductory workouts to pave the way for some of the more challenging workouts to come. And then as we get closer to the race, we can maybe sacrifice some volume for intensity and go that route. I think that's totally fine. But yeah, it kind of just depends on like where you are in your running journey, how much time you have. But at a very basic level, I would say let's simply maximize the amount of time that we have, whether that's 3 hours a week, 5 hours a week, 7 hours a week, whatever it might be. Let's just do the best training that we can do with the time that we have available.
A lot of runners out there who would like to run more, and maybe they have the time in their week to run more, but they always seem to run up against kind of this invisible ceiling about how much volume their body can handle. And like you said, high mileage is relative. For everybody, it's different. But we have a lot of runners out there who are hitting that ceiling at 15 miles per week, 20 miles per week. They're struggling to run more than that. They're feeling sore. They're feeling fatigued. They're verging on burnout. When you hear something like that and hear of a runner really struggling to comfortably run more than 15 to 20 miles per week, and it's something that they want to do, what kind of questions, where would you start in examining what might be going on with that runner?
Yeah, I would first want to know how many runs per week that they're running, because a lot of the times they're holding themselves maybe not to a certain mileage standard, but a certain standard in terms of how many days per week they're running. So if you're only running 3 or 4 days per week, it can actually be fairly easy to add some miles by adding in another run during the week. Now, we're talking short, 3 miles, super easy. Let's label it zone one. We're jogging. And that's the way you build mileage initially, is any extra mileage is going to be super easy. The goal is to run the mileage. It's not to run it at any certain pace. There's no performance expectations. If there's someone who maybe is getting hurt from adding more mileage, I would, number one, make sure the progression of mileage increases is just very slow. We can be gradual. Maybe this is where we're going to run more days per week to kind of spread out that stress. Because, if you think about running 20 miles a week, if you do that in 7 days of running, you're not even running 3 miles a day. But if you do that in one day of running, you have to go for a 20-mile long run. And that is way more stressful than dividing it up into 7 days of running. So typically more days of running over the same mileage level is just going to be a little bit easier. That's why you're going to see a lot of elite runners take an 11 or 12 mile day and split it up between 2 runs. Same principle, little bit of a different application. The other thing that I would do is have them do some basic strength training. Let's start getting stronger muscles, thicker tendons and connective tissues. Let's really build up the durability of our joints. It doesn't have to be super fancy, but if a runner has a history with injuries, they seem to be somewhat injury prone, especially if they're running more mileage. One of my inclinations is, well, let's get stronger so that you can handle the impact stress of running a little bit more efficiently. Besides that, adding in a more frequent days of running, really making sure that any additional running is a very easy pace and the progression of that mileage build is very reasonable. The other thing that I might do is maybe we can do it with cross training. So like we were talking about earlier, maybe we don't run more than 20 miles a week for a couple weeks. We stay at that 20, we gradually add cross training. And then instead of going for that 75-minute bike ride on Sunday, we're going to cut that down to maybe 30 minutes, but it's going to be a very easy 3 miles of running. Because I think it's helpful to know that these kinds of adaptations, those aerobic adaptations, the structural adaptations that allow you to handle more running, they take about a month. Especially the structural adaptations take a little bit longer. So, those might be 3 to 5 weeks, whereas an aerobic adaptation is like 2 to 3 weeks. And that's why you often feel very aerobically fit, but then you get hurt because your body is not as strong as your aerobic system. And that's why we're going to add in that strength training to sort of speed along that rate of improvement and adaptation with your connective tissues so that you can handle more running over time. But the final thing I'll say about this is take a really long-term approach to this. Like maybe reach a new weekly mileage record by 10 miles once a year. So this year, you're going to hit 30. Next year, you're going to hit 40. The year after that, you're going to hit 50. That seems like a very slow progression, but it's actually faster than trying to go quicker, getting hurt, having a setback, rebuilding, and then just repeating that cycle over and over again because you're trying to do it in a way that just doesn't really work with the rates of improvement that you're working with your body. Like we are trying to work amongst the confines of physical adaptation, and it takes a little bit of time.